Stop thinking a massive price tag on Centerfire glass makes you a better airgun shooter. Look, most guys are throwing a $2,000 price tag at a scope built for a 30-06 and wondering why they cannot hit a pest at 15 yards. That heavy recoil glass is not built for us. We need 10-yard parallax and massive elevation travel for our steep slug trajectories, things those big-name brands completely ignore. Honestly, it is a massive waste of money that leaves you with a blurry image and drifting crosshairs right when the pressure is on. Today, we are cutting through the marketing fluff to rank the top 7 optics engineered specifically for modern pre-charged pneumatic ballistics. Let's get into it. Kicking off the list at number 7, we have the Vortex Viper HD 5-25 power by 50mm first focal plane. This is a premium tactical Stalwart built on a single-piece 30mm aluminum chassis. Vortex packed this with their high-density optical system, and the edge-to-edge clarity is legitimately impressive. Looking through this glass is like staring through a freshly polished windshield on a crisp morning. There is zero tunneling effect, and the color fidelity is near perfect. They armor the exterior lenses with ArmorTech to fight off dirt and oil, which is a massive plus for rugged field work. Now let us talk about true dialing and the turret mechanics. Behind that glass sits the first focal plane VMR4 reticle, which gives you a very forgiving eye box and 10 levels of red illumination. The elevation turret is exposed and locking, while the windage is capped to prevent accidental bumps in the brush. The clicks are authoritative and tactile. They snap into place like a heavy brass deadbolt sliding home into a door frame. It features the patented RevStop Zero system to give you the mechanical breakdown on this. A zero stop is a physical machine block inside the turret housing. Once you set your baseline 0, this block prevents the erector tube from dialing below that specific point. This means if you dial up heavily for an extended long-range shot, you can just spin the turret back down in the dark until it physically hits the wall, and you are perfectly back at your base 0 without ever looking at the dial. It packs 20 EMAR AD or 68 MOA of internal elevation travel, which is plenty for Arken heavy slugs at a distance. But here's the deal breaker on this specific model. For pure high-pressure pneumatic application, the side focus minimum parallax only drops down to 20 yards. If you are doing extreme close-range pest control in a tight barn at 10 yards, the target image and the reticle are not going to be on the exact same focal plane. This causes severe parallax error, meaning your crosshairs will swim across the target if your head moves even a fraction of an inch. It is a fantastic piece of glass, but that 20-yard limit keeps it locked here at number 7. Stepping up the light transmission, we hit number 6 with the Athlon Heras SPR 6-24 power by 56mm. This is not a crossover centerfire optic that happens to focus close. This heavyweight was built strictly from the ground up for small caliber rifles and high pressure pneumatics. It reaches out with a massive 56mm objective lens mated to a 30mm main tube. When you look through this glass, it is like flipping on a halogen floodlight in a pitch-black barn. That brings us to the optical physics of this beast. Let us talk about the exit pupil. An exit pupil is mathematically calculated by dividing the objective lens diameter by your magnification setting. Because you have a massive 56mm piece of glass up front, even dialed out to 24 power, you get a highly generous 2.33mm exit pupil. This means instead of fighting a tight, shadowy eye box at dusk, your eye gets flooded with light, letting you pick out a camouflaged pest deep in the woodland canopy. Under the hood, the internal tracking provides around 25 mRAD of travel. Dialing these turrets feels fantastic. The mechanical feedback gives you a deeply satisfying, aggressive tactile click that chunks into place like a heavy ratchet wrench. It utilizes the APLR-9 first focal plane illuminated reticle. For the airgun application, the side focus is exceptionally forgiving and drops down perfectly to a strict 10 yards. This gives you crystalline clarity for close-range dispatching. But let us be real. Here is the deal breaker. The reticle geometry is machined at 0.05 mil thickness. While that makes it highly visible across the entire magnification range, it is honestly a bit too thick for absolute precision. If you are trying to hold dead center on a tiny target at 100 yards, that heavy grid is going to obscure your aim point. It is also a massive chunk of metal, weighing in at 32 ounces and stretching 15 inches. If you are shooting off a bench, that mass acts as an inertial dampener, absorbing your pulse micro tremors. Look, if you are carrying a lightweight bullpup into the woods, this optic will completely ruin your balance point. I know the traditional ultralight hunting guys will doubt this heavy setup, but sound off below if you have ever trusted a massive 56mm objective to cut through heavy shadows on a late evening hunt. Now we get into the serious precision glass, stepping into the ultralight category with number 5. This is the Arken Optics EPL4, providing a wide field of view at 6 power and dialing up to 24 power with a 50mm objective. Honestly, finding premium features in a scope that does not weigh down your carbon fiber-wrapped PCP hunting rig is a massive headache. Most extreme precision scopes are absolute bricks, but Arken stripped away the fat to give us a streamlined 30mm main tube that weighs a mere 23.7 ounces and measures 13.8 inches. Looking through this Japanese ELD glass is like staring through a high-end microscope. Crisp, distortion-free edges with zero purple fringing on bright targets. Street price sets you back around $400, which is an absolute steal for this level of performance. Let us dig into the mechanics and the turret tracking. You get an exposed elevation turret featuring the Arken Zero Stop, paired with a capped windage turret. When you dial that elevation, the turrets deliver sharp, resonant clicks that sound like snapping a dry hickory twig in half. It gives you 8 mRAD per revolution and 20 mRAD of total internal travel, giving you plenty of room to dial for those looping subsonic lead trajectories. The airgun application here is flawless because the side focus dials down perfectly to 10 yards for close-range pest dispatching. We need to talk about the optical mechanics of the reticle. Being a first focal plane optic, the reticle scales dynamically with your magnification, meaning your mil-hash windage holds remain mathematically perfect whether you are sweeping the woods at 6 power or zoomed all the way in. But here is the deal breaker on this specific unit: usability at the bottom end. Arken uses an ultrafine 0.03 mil main line thickness for their VHR and VPR reticles. While that is amazing for precision on maximum zoom, if you forget to turn on the red illumination at the minimum 6 power setting, those crosshairs completely vanish against dark foliage, making rapid target acquisition a total nightmare. This is a phenomenal piece of lightweight glass, but wait until you see the absolute tracking monster sitting at number 1. It redefines what a high-pressure pneumatic optic can do. Pushing the absolute ballistic limits of airgun slugs, we arrive at number 4. This is the Bushnell Match Pro ED 5-30 power by 56mm first focal plane. This long-range behemoth abandons the traditional 30mm standard and uses a massive 34mm main tube. Reaching out with 30 power magnification, the sight picture is an absolute titan. Looking through this proprietary extra-low dispersion prime glass is like staring through a high-definition theater screen, massive color fidelity, and zero distortion on the edges. They bake on their EXO barrier coating at a molecular level to aggressively repel water and abrasive dust. Let us talk about the myth of tube size. Most guys at the gun counter think a 34mm tube automatically gathers more light than a 30mm tube. That is mathematically false. The primary function of a 34mm tube is to house a physically larger internal erector assembly. This expanded internal space yields an astonishing 30 mRAD, or 100 MOA, of total internal elevation adjustment. That is a game-changing advantage when you are arcing heavy subsonic lead at 150 yards, allowing you to dial the turret for immense drop without running out of mechanical travel. The turrets themselves are exposed and locking. Grabbing these dials, the clicks are heavy and aggressive, locking into place like racking the slide on a well-oiled pistol. You get a highly visible 2-stage revolution indicator, so you never get lost in the dial after spinning up for a long-range dispatch. The first focal plane, DM2 reticle, gives you a highly detailed illuminated grid with a precise floating center dot. It even incorporates an intelligent 6-hour automatic shutoff timer, completely eliminating the frustration of grabbing your rifle and finding a dead battery. But here's the deal breaker. If you are running a tight pest control setup, the side focus parallax mechanism only drops down to a 15-yard minimum. While that is fine for NRL 22 or extended bench rest, if you are clearing out pests inside a tight 10-yard basement, you're going to fight parallax error and a blurry image. Combine that with a physically exhausting 32-ounce weight stretching 15.5 inches, and this optic becomes an absolute nightmare to carry off-hand through heavy brush. Entering the elite tier, we lock onto number 3. This is the Element Optics Helix Gen 2, dialing up to 24 power with a 50mm objective in the first focal plane. Built on a rigid 30mm aircraft-grade aluminum main tube, this piece is aggressively nitrogen purged to stop internal fogging when the temperature drops. Weighing in at 26 ounces and measuring 14.3 inches, it is perfectly balanced for both stalking and bench rest work. Looking through this fully multi-coated glass is like peering through a flawlessly clean camera lens. It gives you a generous eye box with 3.94 to 3.54 inches of eye relief, preventing that annoying black shadowing when you mount the rifle fast. The side parallax adjustment operates smoothly, dialing down to exactly 10 yards. This absolute necessity lets you maintain perfect focus on backyard targets without suffering any parallax shift. Grabbing these tool-free tactical turrets, the clicks are highly distinct. They snap into place like dropping a heavy steel ball bearing onto a glass table. Let us tear down the internal mechanics of these turrets. Instead of using standard soft brass or aluminum alloys, Element utilizes hardened stainless steel for the internal turret components. This engineering choice is critical because precision airgun shooters dial their turrets constantly to compensate for extreme slug drop. Hardened steel completely stops the internal teeth from wearing down or rounding off. This ensures your tracking remains mathematically flawless and returns to absolute zero even after tens of thousands of heavy rotational clicks. The APR-1C and APR-2D reticles offer a floating center dot that will not obscure tiny targets, backed by a clean Christmas tree grid for rapid MRAD or MOA windage holds. But here is the truth. Every scope has a flaw. While the glass is fantastic for the money, you do get some heavy purple frinning when staring at high contrast targets on absolute maximum 24 power. If you are shooting a black steel target against a bright sky, that chromatic aberration color bleed can fatigue your eye after a long session behind the trigger. Closer to the crown, we slam into number 2. This is the Athlon Argos BTR Generation 3, reaching out with 24 power magnification and sporting a 50mm objective in the first focal plane. If you want premium extreme long-range target features without destroying a $1,000 budget, this is your huckleberry. The damage to your wallet is incredibly low for what you get out of this 30mm aluminum tube. Looking through this advanced, fully multi-coated glass is like looking through a freshly washed high-rise window. Razor-sharp contrast that cuts right through heavy mirage. They bake on their XPL coating to protect against dirt and abrasive environmental grime. Spinning the parallax adjustment wheel, it is massive and easy to manipulate with gloved hands. Dialing down to a strict 10 yards, this caters perfectly to the fundamental requirement of an airgun optic, giving you absolute clarity on close-range pest control. Let us talk about the tracking on these aggressive tactical turrets. Grabbing these exposed dials, they are completely devoid of that mushy feeling you get in budget glass. The mechanical clicks are defined by strict 0.1 mil adjustments, snapping into place like a heavy steel toggle switch flipping over. It features a true mechanical zero-stop system that successfully returns to absolute zero after repeated dramatic adjustments. Now, let us break down the mechanics of the internal travel. This optic only provides 18 MRAD of total internal elevation. If you are shooting a flat centerfire, that is fine, but for heavy subsonic lead, you will run out of dial fast. That is why you must pair this with a canted 20 MOA scope rail. By physically tilting the optic downward on the rifle action, you force your mechanical zero near the top of the erector tube's physical limit inside the scope body. This genius mechanical trick gives you almost the entirety of that 18 MRAD, specifically for dialing drop, rather than wasting half of the travel on upward adjustment you will never actually use in the field. But listen, here is the deal breaker on this generation. Because they packed so much durable brass and heavy components into a standard 50mm profile, it weighs an absolute ton at 30.3 ounces. That is a severe ergonomics flaw if you are running a lightweight mobile rig. Hauling almost 2 pounds of optic through thick brush will fatigue your arms fast, making off-hand shots incredibly difficult to stabilize. Taking the throne at number 1, this is the absolute crown jewel of the high-pressure pneumatic world, the Hawke Sidewinder 30F FP 4-16, power by 50mm. It gives you the generous eye box and flawless close-range focus of the Arken EPL4 at number 5, but with a mechanical tracking system and rugged reliability that puts the Athlon Argos Generation 3 to absolute shame. It perfectly balances weight and optical performance without pushing you into that exhausting 32-ounce category of the massive Bushnell at number 4. Looking through this 18-layer, fully multi-coated H5 optical system is like staring through a high-end European spotting scope on a crisp winter morning. The photon transmission is completely unmatched, flooding your ocular pupil with light when you are hunting in the deep woods at dusk. Grabbing the lockable exposed tactical turrets. The 0.1 MRAD clicks are razor sharp. They lock in with a heavy metallic thud that feels like closing the bolt on a custom machine precision action. Let us talk about the mechanical genius of the witness window. Hawke integrated a physical cutout window directly into the top of the elevation turret cap. Instead of relying on microscopic horizontal lines painted on the erector tube base to know how many times you have spun the dial, you just look down through the cap window to see a physical internal post rising and falling. This mechanical indicator completely prevents the fatal error of getting lost in your dial during a stressful, multi-revolution, long-range target engagement. The 30mm main chassis balances beautifully on a rifle at 25.6 ounces and 13.3 inches in length. The side wheel parallax adjustment drops down flawlessly to 9 meters, which is right around 10 yards. This completely kills all parallax error for tight indoor or woodland work, ensuring your crosshairs never swim off the target. The first focal plane, half-mil reticle, gives you exact mathematical holdovers out to 5mm dots without completely burying the target under a thick tactical grid. It is the undeniable king of the airgun optics market. Look, building a high-pressure pneumatic precision rig is a serious investment. Do not choke out its mechanical potential by mounting cheap glass with mushy turrets on your scope rail. Whether you are dialing heavy drop for extreme long-range bench rest or using your mill hash marks to hold over on a pest in a tight barn, your scope is the primary interface between you and the target. Get glass that tracks. Get a reticle that scales perfectly in the first focal plane. And honestly, get an optic that actually focuses down to 10 yards so you're not fighting a blurry image and severe parallax shift in the deep woods. If you want the raw truth without the marketing fluff, lock it in right here.